Are you familiar with this model right here? It's called the Competence Model. And this model divides into four quadrants: the level of competence that you have, and it matches it with the level of consciousness you have about your competence. So let's begin here, down here in this bottom quadrant. This is the unconscious competence quadrant. People who live in the unconscious incompetence quadrant absolutely don't feel any pain by the fact that they don't have any English skills. That's why it says right here they're very comfortable. People who live in this quadrant feel very comfortable with their lives just as they are, and they're really not thinking about learning English. They're unconsciously incompetent. This is not you, or you would not be here. You probably fall either in this quadrant or in the next quadrant. Let's talk first about this one up here on the right. The second quadrant up here is that you might be consciously incompetent. In other words, you are aware that your competence in English is not always that great. Now, there are varying degrees, and you may not feel like this all of the time. There may be some times where you feel very competent in some areas of your English. But many people who have reached intermediate level English still have moments where they are very clearly aware that they are incompetent at some level and in some areas. And this feeling creates enormous insecurity when it comes to engaging in English. For example, if you feel consciously incompetent and you go into a meeting where everyone is speaking English, and suddenly they're talking about something, an area where you have knowledge and information to give, or maybe you have a question to ask, you may want to join that conversation, but you think, no, I know that I do not know quite how to phrase the question I want to ask. I'm consciously incompetent. That gives me insecurity. The next quadrant over is an experience that I hope most of you at least have had on occasion. Some of you may live in this quadrant over here, and that is the quadrant where you are consciously competent. And that means that I know how to do things right in English much of the time. I may have moments where I drop into conscious incompetence, but most of the time I know what I know. And if someone comes up to me and says, how do I get from here to McDonald's? I know I'm consciously competent. I can say, well, go down this street for 3 blocks, take a right, walk 1 block down, and you will see McDonald's on the corner on the left. And that person walks away and you think, wow, I'm competent in English. And you have a consciousness of that competence. Now, that gives you confidence. That gives you confidence. When we get to the point where we know that we can travel around the world and ask questions correctly and get answers that we understand, and we read and we can understand what's written, and we may even know how to write a note here or there that other people understand, that gives us enormous confidence. So we want to keep moving around from conscious incompetence to conscious competence, but ultimately we want to get down here to this lower quadrant, which is unconscious competence. And that's where you don't have to think when you speak in English. It just comes out of your mouth correctly. You can write without having to think very much before you write the sentence. Things begin to just flow with great competence without much brain effort. That is unconsciously competent. And when you reach that level, what you feel is more than just confidence. You feel security. You feel at home with the language. You can live anywhere. You can solve anything. You can join any conversation. You can answer any phone call. You can go into an interview and you know how to answer every question. You're not worried about it at all. Well, most of you are probably in this quadrant or this one over here. You're either consciously incompetent or you're consciously competent. The skills that I teach you are the skills that take somebody from where you are in one of these two quadrants directly to this bottom quadrant. They are the skills that make interpreters into high-quality professional interpreters. When I was learning Spanish, I remember very well the times when I was consciously incompetent. I was very well aware that some things I did not know how to say. I did not know how to structure in a sentence. Or some people would say things to me and I wasn't sure I was aware that I was not quite mature enough in my language skills in Spanish. And then I moved to conscious competence. But the truth about it is, when I became consciously competent, I began thinking, I might like to be an interpreter of Spanish. And I began doing the things that I teach you in this course. I began to do, and I still do, the 8 daily habits that I teach you in my course. And what those habits do is they take you quickly from these two quadrants down to the unconscious competent quadrant. That's where I am now with Spanish, with Portuguese, and with English. I'm not having to think here about about how to say what I'm saying. I have to think about the content I want to tell you, but I'm not having to sit here and think, okay, how do I say this? It's unconscious competence. I can do the same in Portuguese. Eu começo a falar em português e eu já não estou mais pensando em inglês. Para mim é uma coisa natural. Y lo mismo me pasa con el español. Si alguien llega a conversar conmigo en español, yo no tengo que hacer un cambio de canal de portugués a español o de inglés a español. No, ya mi mente funciona naturalmente, tengo una competencia totalmente inconsciente. Es natural para mí decir las cosas en español con palabras en castellano como Dios manda. Okay? So that's what I want for you in English, is to feel this comfort level. And the way you're going to get from conscious incompetence or conscious competence down to unconscious competence, the quickest way to get there is to develop habits like the ones I teach you in this course and put them to work every day. And a year from now, if you do those habits, a year from now, you're not going to believe how you have moved around to this quadrant. You're going to have fewer and fewer days, fewer and fewer moments over here where you feel incompetent, more and more days where you feel competent, and some days where you realize, wow, I just spent an hour, 2, 3, I just spent 3, 4 days in English and never even thought about it. That's the purpose of these habits. So I hope you'll consider launching into this program again. I know you've seen it live in a seminar. Many of you, anyway, have seen me live in a seminar. And you got the ideas. You may remember the content. But the content does nothing. It just makes you more consciously incompetent. If I know the content, but I'm not doing something that makes me move around to this lower quadrant, then really I'm just emphasizing the fact that I'm consciously incompetent in English. We don't want that. So you need to go beyond the content that I give you in the course, and you actually need to develop the habits. And this online course is designed that way, to give you something that the seminar will not give you. Because after the seminar, we leave, we say goodbye, see you later, and you forget all about it. By having this routine that you're going to go through for 33 days, basically putting together all the material, it may take you 45 days, maybe 60 if you skip some days. But by the end of this, you are going to know how to take charge of your own training. You're going to know what you're good at. You're going to know what your weakest points are in English. You're going to know how to fix the things that are difficult for you. You're going to know how to solve the pronunciation questions you have. And a wide range of issues are going to be solvable by you without needing a teacher, without needing a coach, without needing a school. What you need are these tools. I hope to see you soon in class.